how do you engage with your fans and create your personal brand in this new sort of age of technology? And this is where we've started looking at real world utility being attached to something like a smart contract.
I want to change lives. I want to show people how to progress in their money. I want to show people how to progress in their mindset. I want to show people how to progress in their brand, so that way they can take care of their family, take care of their finances, and experience freedom.
Welcome to the Business Owner Spotlight. Today I'm excited because today I got Ash Ho with a Y. Off camera, we were just talking. Tell me how the exact way to pronounce it.
So the exact way is Hoey.
Oh, okay. So Hoey, and so Ash is one of the co-founders of a company called Stadio Global. And Ash's background, man, he and his partner Martin have exited businesses in the tens of millions of dollars. And today he's going to break down on his new project, Stadio Global, and how you can get involved. Welcome to the podcast today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Andy. Great to be here.
Likewise, Ash, man. So as I broke down your bio, it really intrigued me about the NFT. And that's been like the hottest thing. And so for the listeners who are listening, can you break down, before we go into Stadio Global, what you're doing and how you've exited businesses and your successes, can you go with me and share with me, like, what is an NFT? And why is it making so much waves in the marketplace today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So look, there's a lot of excitement at the moment, and obviously NFTs are a pretty big buzz, especially in the technology and the blockchain space. To answer your question, and anyone sort of getting into the space now, to understand an NFT, which stands for non-fungible token. So fungibility means, can something be altered or changed? So non-fungibility means that it's fixed, it's finite, it can't be changed. Now, a non-fungible token can be an asset that represents some form of smart contract. So in the traditional, contract sense, you would have a document that might set out some rules or guidelines or things that need to be acted upon. With a smart contract, you can actually programmatically code in things that need to take place. And instead of having a, image of a PDF on a document on your computer, a NFT can actually enable a smart contract to have a visual representation. And that can be an image, a video clip, a voice clip, so audio, visual. Ultimately, a non-fungible token, though, had a lot of interest in the artist scene, because what you can do with a smart contract is obviously program royalties and ongoing benefits. So it's a really unique
smart contract. When you say smart contract, we're not talking about level of intelligence. We're talking about, like, you can set up parameters, conditions, and if then when branches. Like, is that what's happening with a smart contract?
Yeah, correct. So a smart contract is essentially a digital contract that's programmed onto the blockchain. So it says, X, Y, Z, whatever you decide to embed as part of that smart contract, and it's then fixed, meaning that it's non-fungible. If it's represented by an NFT, it means it's fixed, it's finite, it's immutable, it can't be deleted.
The rules of that contract.
Correct.
So let me ask you a question. So for example, like real estate, when you buy real estate, you put your money into escrow, and then everyone you give the contract to escrow, and the deal with escrow is, hey, out of the money that the buyer is putting in, a portion goes to the seller, a portion goes to the real estate agent, a portion goes to the other loan company, and so forth. Escrow takes care of the disbursements. Is that kind of similar of how a smart contract works, where the blockchain or the contract itself plays like escrow, where it's dividing and giving people based on the rules?
Yeah, correct. So it's essentially automating that process, and it's saying, what the rules are, and the smart contract actually then fulfills what the rules are. So, and then for the smart contract, you can obviously hold a token that represents ownership over it. And that's what the NFT kind of comes into play. So instead of having a physical piece of paper that can be, torn up, it can be lost, it can be burnt, it can be affected by the natural weather elements, a non-fungible token could actually represent a smart contract, which is the property land title. And that's where it sits on the blockchain, and it's obviously secure. It's proof of ownership. And obviously if it sits in your private wallet, that's how you know that this person owns that piece of land, which is what the NFT might represent. So instead of having a physical piece of paper, for example.
So before we go into your system, so really what's happening, for example, like when I see people put up a monkey on their social media profile, that monkey or that image, is that essentially that image representing the smart contract?
Yeah, it is
completely different.
In a very simplistic sense, the monkey image is representing a smart contract, which says this wallet address, so the owner of that wallet address, they own this asset and the purchase amount is X. So if somebody wants to sell that monkey, the owner of that, so if they've, someone's got their Instagram, so Steph Curry, he's got one of these Bored Apes, he paid a lot of money for it. And obviously there's a lot of hype. It's a brand, so it does have some sort of real world utility, but that digital asset that he owns, if he was to sell it, the smart contract would then say this amount of funds is going to be deposited into this wallet. And if there was a additional agreement or rules that were built into it, would say this money would also go here or go here. But once that asset is then moved to someone else's wallet, that's proof of ownership. So anyone can take a picture and a screenshot, and that's where the confusion comes into it. It's about proof of ownership. And then if you can show that you have the keys to the kingdom, that's how you actually, are able to monetize. And the funds come to you if you sell that asset.
So it's kind of like, because as I've been studying, I think, in our conversation, you kind of share it in the most simplistic way, which is one of the skill sets that you obviously have, which is the skill to communicate. So in its most simplistic way, when people see that monkey, it's not that it's not the image of the monkey that's the value. It's that there's an agreement on the blockchain that says, hey, this monkey is owned by this individual or this entity.
Yeah,
and that's what's valuable.
Yeah, correct. The value is the proof of ownership, right? Because like you said, you could take a screenshot of, something digitally. And that's why, it's fun to, have a bit of a laugh about it. Like I could take a screenshot on YouTube of LeBron James doing a dunk and then someone trying to sell that. The actual ownership sits within the smart contract, and that's represented by the NFT, and you can have that visual. So the value is obviously part to do with the ownership, but of course, the other part of the value is what's someone willing to pay for it. That then is the question around brand value. So a Bored Ape, there's a certain brand value associated with that because they've managed to get to a certain scale and a size of what they've done. They've now got partnerships with Adidas, they've got partnerships with Nike, they're starting to build a bit of a metaverse, system around it. So there's real world utility. And by holding one of those Bored Apes in the form of an NFT, if you were to get access to some of their exclusive events for only Bored Ape holders, you're going to have to log in through your digital wallet. And if that wallet doesn't actually own a Bored Ape, you're not going to get access. So that's where the proof of ownership comes in, because you can actually electronically verify if somebody is an owner of one of these NFTs.
Understood. So it seems like not only do these NFT experiences or NFT tokens has real world utility, but there's also ways that you can create the rules in the smart contracts. And so Stadio, your company that you partnered up with Martin, in your business, the way that you did it was that you allowed new era athletes to commercialize their own personal brand. Is that right? First of all, why that direction in the first place? Why athletes in the first place and personal brands?
Yeah, cool. So look, I'll just start with obviously myself and Martin's sort of story and why we decided to get into the space, and I'll keep it very high level. Both Martin and myself have actually founded and sold what we call Web 2 businesses. So we've both scaled and exited technology companies that we've built from the ground up, and we've sold to other businesses. So we understand the process of going from zero to exit. My sort of previous company was to do with online ID verification and so know your customer services. Martin had a company, one of his recent ones was a police checking business. So we actually met when we were working with Uber in Australia. So Martin was actually doing all the police checks for Uber drivers, and my company was doing all the driver's license checks for Uber drivers. And we actually met through that collaboration, and obviously had some other business dealings together. Now, Martin actually has done a few corporate sponsorships for some sporting teams. So he's got a network of athletes, coaches, club owners. Myself, I've actually been involved with basketball for a long time. I played myself. I've got a lot of friends that have still, continued to play and actually have made it, in the NBA and the NBL over in Europe. And it's a space that we love, obviously being sports fans. Having invested in some athletes as well, Martin started to see some issues around, keeping agents accountable to what they say. If a contract is drawn up with an athlete, we hear a lot of horror stories about them getting, essentially screwed over, not getting what they deserve to be paid. And this is where the technology now that Web3 and blockchain creates, and that's where NFTs and smart contracts start to come into play. We've talked to a number of athletes around how are you looking to monetize your personal brand? And, you've only got a limited window to monetize yourself while you're actually playing. But what about, after you stop playing? And, if you get injured, where are you going to get your sort of income from after, the game is done. So this is where we've started thinking about if I'm looking at, trying to find Coca-Cola as a sponsor for a certain, product that we want to do, how do you sort of get them to the table? How do you contract it up? As an athlete, you get approached by, if you're a good athlete, you're going to get approached by Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, and you're going to get a really good deal if you obviously have a lot of brand presence. But what about majority of the athletes that are professional, that maybe are doing their own kind of creative artistry, whether it's actually creating artwork or whether you've got a clothing line? How do you engage with your fans and create your personal brand in this new sort of age of technology? And this is where we've started looking at real world utility being attached to something like a smart contract. For example, one of our brand ambassadors and one of our early athletes we've got on board is a guy called Dejan Vasiljevic. He played at the University of Miami. He's now playing in the National Basketball League here in Australia for the Sydney Kings. Actually, Andrew Bogut's ex-team, if you know Andrew Bogut, for basketball fans out there, played in the NBA, Milwaukee Bucks, and then came back to the Sydney Kings. With Dejan, he's actually got his own clothing brand. So any fan that wants to purchase one of Dejan's NFTs, if you're a holder of that NFT, you can actually unlock discount opportunities for purchasing his clothing brand. So that's like one example.
Like his personal clothing. Like, it's not like the NBA or the NFL or anything. It's what he wants to personally put out.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So we're giving them a platform to express themselves and actually engage fans in a new and more intimate way.
So, for example, like many personal brands that are in the athlete space, they got to go work with someone else. So they got to go work with Nike, work with Adidas, because they have the platform to be able to distribute it and so forth. But the real valuable asset is the personal brand of the individual. And now, for the first time ever, instead of them having to go direct to another organization, you're giving them the ability to go direct to the end consumer.
Correct.
With your company. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, how does that impact? So, for example, if I want to buy John Doe's clothes, doesn't he still have to go through an organization to actually like manufacture the clothing itself in that example?
Yeah, absolutely. What we're doing is we're providing that digital interface that allows someone to, if they want to sell your clothes through, our online marketplace, we've got those capabilities. They're probably going to do it through third parties like, Shopify websites or their own kind of GoDaddy website they might develop. What we're doing is we're actually helping create a new way to engage the fan and keep the fan re-engaged. So the difference between, say, having to go and procure your own, shirts from a manufacturer or whatnot, what you're just talking about, it's the ability that once you've got that kind of collection set up, how is somebody going to get a discount or get closer to that athlete and have a benefit for obviously supporting them as an individual? Yes, you can buy the clothing brand direct and you might not get a discount or whatnot, but let's say you do purchase, say, a digital collectible that Dejan has put out as an example. By owning one of those, then if you go and purchase one of his, assets, such as a clothing item within his ecosystem, you're going to get a discount because you're already a direct fan that's shown, support to him. But that's not the only thing that you might get. For example, if you wanted to have a coaching session by Dejan, as a professional basketball player, you wanted to obviously meet him in person, depending on which type of collectible that you purchase, it might unlock a different real world benefit. So we're actually working with the athletes.
You can verify who owns it because it's an NFT.
Correct. Yeah. So, obviously if someone wants to rock up and say, hey, I'm here for a coaching session, they'll say, yeah, show us proof of ownership that you've actually got the benefit, or you can claim this. And that's how we can verify it, because it's all digital and it's proof of ownership.
So in its most simplest term, like what it sounds like, it's like in the real world, let's say 2010, it's like saying, hey, if you purchase a ticket to do coaching with Dejan, you need a ticket. But what has happened in the real world is many times you can see on YouTube, those tickets have been duplicated, scammed, reprinted, and it's fake. And then so it's hard for you to determine what's real and what's not. So then they transition to a receipt, right? So what you need is a receipt for the transaction, but even that could be duplicated and that could be faked and so forth. But when you go now to this, NFTs, you can't duplicate this because it's only one number or one wallet that it's attached to, and it's verifiable on the blockchain, where you can't duplicate it. At least right now, you can't duplicate this.
Yeah, no, correct. That's exactly right. So I think you're obviously, you're a pretty smart guy. You're picking up what we're putting down. The idea is that we're trying to make the process a lot more seamless, have transparency and accountability in the transaction. So you're not going to have people being able to duplicate things easily. It's not to say people won't try, but if you've got a single asset that has its own unique identifier, that is going to be the only one that's going to be valid when you go to obviously claim or purchase or participate in whatever it is that you're looking to get access to. So we're the owner or the creator that's obviously offering that sort of said benefit. They're going to know which of the official identifiers that match up with certain NFTs are going to be able to say, yes, this is approved. So when you have a ticket in the traditional sense from a physical ticket, at the end of the event, most people just chuck it in the bin, right? With NFTs, you've now got a new digital mechanism that you've got proof of participation or proof of ownership to say, hey, I've actually got this, digital asset that said I was there. I rode on this ride. I was in the event. I was at the concert, whatever it might be. You've got that proof that you were the person holding that ticket at the time, and you were part of that group. Now, you don't have to throw that in the bin, because being digital as a creator or the owner of that asset, you can start to continually add new value to what that NFT might represent. So you won't want to throw it in the bin, but that's where adding additional value to it over time, you might have purchased this NFT, say in 2020.
Contract?
Sorry?
Can the owner change the contract?
No, the smart contract represents the digital asset, but by owning that asset, you can then say, all right, for anyone holding this asset, we're now going to put on a new event. And if you're a holder of this, you're going to get exclusive access before the rest of the community. So it's actually real world attachment continually being added to just because you're a holder of that asset. So you don't actually know what the value of it might be, because things haven't come to pass yet. Because you're the owner, it is going to continue to grow in value as long as the creator continues to add value to it. So it's not just a guaranteed, this is going to make money, this is going to go up in value. There's real world effort that has to be applied to it. And there are things that can be done that are scalable. There are other things that might be a bit more manual.
Question for you, Ash. As we wrap up in the next couple of minutes, I see the value for the athlete themselves, right? Direct consumer ability with your platform. What value does it have for the other side, for the actual consumer and the guests listening to the show?
The flip side, have being a consumer and a purchaser, some people will automatically go straight to the default, which is they buy something because they like the look of it, right? That's a lot of the hype at the moment in the NFT world. Oh, the artwork is great. That's not necessarily going to make something, increase in value if you're looking to purchase it, not just to claim the benefit, but if you're looking as a digital asset or instrument that you can grow that wealth, you're going to have to look at it from a couple other, standpoints, which is the creator of that asset going to continually add more value to what that NFT might represent or be able to get you access to? I would be looking at that kind of stuff from an investor. So it's not guaranteed that if what you purchase it for, you can then resell it for, because just, remember very simple principles. And this is not a new concept, but if you put something on the market, you've got to have the demand side as well. If you don't, you can say, I want to sell this for X amount of money, but it's what someone is willing to purchase it for. That's what you have to obviously understand from the investor standpoint. Nothing's guaranteed, but from a trust and transparency standpoint, Stadio is obviously a legitimate company. We're actually incorporated in Australia. We're bound by certain laws. We are operating in a Web3 space. So there's a little bit of the Wild West happening at the moment, but we're doing everything we possibly can to show consumers that this is not something that's going to just disappear overnight. We're here we're here for the long term. We're here for the right reasons. We're here to support athletes. And obviously the more athletes that start to join our ecosystem and start to put out their own assets, it's going to start creating network effects, and people are going to start re-engaging. And then obviously being part of the ecosystem, you might not just be investing in one athlete. You might see a whole bunch of athletes. You might find a team that you want to invest in. And it's a new way to actually get closer to the athletes that you haven't traditionally been able to get access to.
How can whether it's athletes or even purchasers learn more about Stadio?
Yeah, look, obviously we'd recommend heading to stadio.global. So that's the URL. So not stadio.com, not stadioglobal.com. It's stadio.global. And obviously follow us on social. So Stadio HQ is most of our social tags or usernames. And obviously feel free to hit myself or Martin up on Twitter or Instagram. But play@stadio.global is also our email. So we're very contactable.
My man Ash, thank you so much for being on the episode, man. I think this deserves a part 2 in the future, man, to learn more about the exits that you and Martin have done, and even having Martin be a part of this, man. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, thanks so much for having me. Cheers, Andy.